Girl, I want to let you know that this experience that you're going through is so normal. Hey everyone, it's your girl Charnel, aka Oh So Limitless. On my channel, I share tips and resources to support you with becoming the best therapist that you can be. Today, I thought it would be helpful to answer a series of questions that you guys have been asking me on my videos and on Instagram. And so we're gonna be talking about things from the amount of money that we make to choosing the demographic that we wanna work with in private practice or even in community settings. And so I encourage you guys to grab a glass of wine, grab a cup of tea, whatever your preference is, so we can chit chat. The first question is from Simply Lily Tarrant. It says, I love your videos. Did you start private practice right out of grad school or had some experience? Hey girl, thank you so much. In terms of my private practice, I had about 5 years of clinical experience prior to starting. In the 5 years of experience, I had different opportunities where I was working primarily with youth between the ages of 15 to 24. So for example, I worked in a community organization where I worked one-on-one with clients who were either mandated to be there or who volunteered to be there. Their goal or their challenge was excessively using substances, which of course impacted their abilities to function on a daily basis. And so I helped them one-on-one. In addition to that, I provided group presentations to different community organizations, schools to hospitals to educate the youth about the impacts of substances and how that affects our brain and our development, etc., etc. I also had an opportunity where I was working in a hospital setting. I provided a DBT group for those who again had challenges with regulating their emotions. I also worked directly with individuals and their families to support the youth who had concurrent disorders, and so I supported them with their mental health and substance use. And so there were different experiences, but from that I actually gained an understanding of what I felt fulfilled doing versus what I didn't necessarily feel fulfilled doing. And so in my private practice, I don't even necessarily work with individuals less younger than the age of 19, and I also have a completely different demographic. Some colleagues I know have completed their graduate program and went directly into private practice. For me, I gained experience first and then felt more comfortable starting my private practice. The next question is from Destiny Regine. Hello, hey girl, love the video. So glad I found you. Speaking of finding a niche, what do you specialize in? Will you do a video on how you got your private practice, and what state are you in, and what's the salary range? In regards to my niche, I primarily work with women of the BIPOC community. Not to say that's all the clients that I work with, but that's primarily who I'm engaging with on a consistent basis. I also service couples to support them with the challenges that might arise in their romantic relationships. And I also work with individuals to support them with having a better and healthier relationship with themselves and others. And so having a better relationship with themselves means like pretty much having a stronger sense of self, building confidence, having a sense of worthiness, and being able to set boundaries for working with individuals so that they can have a stronger relationship with others. Again, it means being able to set boundaries, being able to be assertive and communicate what comes up for them, dealing with anxiety that comes up in romantic relationships for them. And so that's kind of the realm that I currently work in, and I absolutely love it. In terms of will you do a video on how you got your private practice, I actually got another question about this, so I will consider doing a video like that. What state are you in? So I'm actually in Ontario, Canada. If you guys know Drake, he's actually from Ontario, and so that's where I'm from. That's where I provide my services. And lastly, what's the salary range? So this answer really depends on if you're working for an organization, if you're working in a group practice, if you're working in private practice. It also really depends on what kind of agency or organization you're part of. So let's just say, for example, if you're working in the community, you could be at a hospital setting, you can be at a not-for-profit organization. Your salary, from what I've known or communicated with colleagues, can range anywhere between $40K to, let's say on the higher end and not necessarily the most realistic end, is $80K. Okay, and that's working 40 hours a week. Now, if you're in private practice, I have a completely different experience where you can work part-time hours depending on what your rate is, and depending on how many clients you see, you can work part-time hours and make 6 figures. So it just kind of really depends on where you are and kind of the services that you're offering at that time, what your salary is. The next question is from Becca Christ. I hope I pronounced that right. It says, I just found your channel and I love your content. Thank you, girl. I am currently doing my BS in psychotherapy and counseling. I was just wondering, do you have any tips for grounding yourself as a therapist? I'm in pure skills at the moment and I've noticed I've been talking fast. I'm trying to slow it down and be more present with my clients. Do you have any tips on managing this? And has this been something you've ever struggled with? So everyone watching this, comment below and let me know if you would be interested in me doing a video dedicated to supporting us as therapists with grounding ourselves before going into session or before going into group practice. And if there's enough interest, I may consider doing a whole video on that. But girl, I want to let you know that this experience that you're going through is so normal. I feel like I've had challenge with this at various points in my career as a therapist, and I feel like even if I were to change my niche again or explore working with a different demographic, I might even have those nervous or anxious feelings again and then might need to ground myself. And so I just want to normalize that experience for you. Now, if I were to suggest one thing off the top of my head for this, I would say engage in a skill or tool called paced breathing. And so paced breathing really helps to disengage from the thoughts or sensations that you might be having in that moment. And it really helps to reduce the stress response that you might be experiencing. And so with paced breathing, the idea is to breathe in for a shorter period of time and breathe out for a longer period of time. And you want to have a controlled breath. The goal also is to do breathing through your diaphragm. You can't really see my diaphragm right now, but I'm touching my stomach, as opposed to chest breathing, because when we breathe through our chest, it's more of a stress response as opposed to breathing through our stomach. And so we want to breathe in for 4 seconds and we breathe out for 6 seconds. And so we're going to breathe in through our nose and breathe out through our mouth. Okay, so let's try this together, and we're only going to do it for, let's say, like 2 times. So we're going to breathe in. And so what you want to do is try to focus as much as you can on your breath. If you find that you're getting distracted, refocus back on your breath, okay? And you should feel all of the breathing happening through your tummy. Again, you guys can't see it, but you should feel it through your tummy. The other thing that I want to mention about this paced breathing is that sometimes it can be really hard if this is kind of like your first time doing it. So it could be helpful to find like an app that helps you with the controlled paced breathing. Okay, so it could be more of a guided paced breathing exercise that is more controlled, and it really helps you to refocus and stay focused in that moment. I would encourage you to do this at the same time every single day. Probably, let's say, at the beginning of your day and at the end of your day for even 5 to 10 minutes to get in the habit of recognizing that paced breathing is a tool that you have and that you can access. And so once you're so familiar with how to engage in paced breathing, when you're in a stressful situation and you need to ground yourself, you can be like, oh yeah, I have this toolkit in my box. Let me engage in paced breathing. And then you can do that real quick. You don't have to touch your chest and your stomach. You could just do it in the moment. Take a moment, go to the bathroom, engage in that, paced breathing, and call it a day and kill your group session. The next question is from Nini. When you worked in person with your clients, did you have an office space? I have always done my therapy sessions since being in private practice online, through video or through the phone. And so I've never actually had an office space where I see clients, but I have had an office space in community organizations that I've worked for in the past. I've had an office space when I worked at the hospital. And so yes, I have an office space. I feel like there are different requirements sometimes that are needed for like your office space when you're working in person versus doing teletherapy. But short answer is, for my private practice, I've never had to use an office. I don't actually know if I will ever go back into having an office. I feel just fine doing my therapy sessions through video. And to be completely honest, it's a great way to save on costs, such as like transportation and just like overhead costs if you're in your own private practice. Doing things virtually has been very cost effective, especially if it's something that you just want to start off and explore without having to commit so much money up front. If you've been enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe. I am going to create a part 2 to answer a few more questions, but I am going to wrap up this video here and I will see you guys in part 2.